Welcome to VaderBots. I'm Bambi Francisco. This week we look at new ways to save time, organize, and present digital content from photos to text to video. Here to help us evaluate this week's companies is Guy Kawasaki. He's an entrepreneur, investor, and internet personality.
I guess.
And Ezra Roizen, of course, digital media investment banker and our VaderBox regular as well. Today we're looking at two promising startups, one from Boulder, Colorado called Occipital, and one from Slovenia called Zemanta. Let's start with Occipital. This is a startup on the cutting edge of revolutionizing the photography industry.
So of course we can lay those photos out onto the map. Okay, but the remainder of our photos, probably the majority of them, aren't GPS tagged. And so to help, Occipital will infer a path between the photos that are tagged, and we'll use that path to infer location for the remainder of the photos. So now with all these photos geotagged, we can go in and maybe label the landmarks that are present in them. But rather than force you to do that manually, scan through the photos, try to remember the landmark, and type in its name, Occipital visually scans a public landmark database using pattern recognition. If a pattern match is found, we can pull it out. In this case, we found one match. We found a match here between our photo and a photo of the Boulder courthouse. Now, using this match, we can, of course, label our photo completely automatically.
Okay. Pitch?
I mean,
done.
This is like next level stuff. So the reality
I'm
is,
talking about the pitch.
the pitch is good, but the problem becomes, the challenge in the pitch is that you got to get pretty next level, kind of super abstract, next generation kind of stuff all encapsulated into something people understand. It took me a while to even get what the heck they were talking about, because he had like dots and stuff on the screen, and I didn't really know what the dots meant.
Dots didn't cut it.
A bunch of dots with some lines going through a dot that looks like the logo.
Let's talk about the novelty. I think that their tagline says it all, where they say photos will no longer be seen as static snapshots. I think this is really a really big leap in terms of how you organize photos.
That's a horrible tagline.
Really?
Tagline should be 3 or 4 words.
Okay.
Making fun funner.
Well, but to me, the problem is that, well, this is clearly a case of a solution in search of a problem.
Yes.
And, I can't tell you that I'm sitting around and, man, if only I knew that the Colosseum was the Colosseum. I mean, I went to the Colosseum. I know it's the Colosseum. Also, there's this lack of precision, and I would think, maybe it's not possible yet, but in digital SLRs, there's GPS. Mm-hmm. So GPS has a whole different level of precision where you know that's the place. Mm-hmm. And I think as more and more cameras get that will be cooler. And probably there's 2 aspects to their deal. One is matching. So we make sure that we figured out that it's the Colosseum that everybody else is. That's number one. GPS would take that problem away. Then problem number 2 would be, well, everybody took this picture at this coordinate, latitude and longitude, so we all know it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. Let's show other people's views of it. That's more interesting, but still a solution in search of a problem.
Right. Well, that is what they do, is that they basically aggregate everyone's photos to give you that 3-dimensional look at an actual picture, as though you're immersed in that scene.
It's a super clever idea. I'm sure it's ridiculously hard to accomplish. The question is, what are the specific applications and when people want that and who wants it? I mean, you got obviously the kind of Google Street View image of things, which also has some really humorous accidental pictures that get thrown in there, like guys passed out drunk on their lawns and stuff that get stuck in there every once in a while.
People, not guys.
Well, not guys, people.
Let's just clarify.
Yeah, people.
I saw that photo.
Yeah. You have a nice lawn. No,
it's the blogger party.
Yeah. People who pass out drunk or whatever, the house is burning down or whatever. So there's funny implementation issues of this as well, because when you amalgamate lots of photos, there's stuff in those photos. And now you got to have a next level thing, which is like getting all the stuff you don't want out. Like you're going to have a picture of a big hall in a museum or something. Half time it's a party, half time it's people walking through, and you're going to have a very interesting amalgam. So things may match geometrically, that don't match contextually.
Yeah.
Well, I think the angle that might work is that if everybody went to a particular event, and so you could sort of build this temporary ad hoc social network around going to, I don't know, Woodstock in 2008. So everybody submits their photos, and they say, well, this is all of us.
Right.
And you see yourselves in pictures you didn't know you were in because somebody else took it. But that's ad hoc.
That's a great application.
Well,
Interesting, but it doesn't sound like
But
it's
Kathy
something you need
Johnson
to
already
do all
does
the
that at
time.
most parties. So you don't need anybody else. We already have a solution in Silicon Valley. It's Kathy's individual camera.
She doesn't go to every event.
Oh, well, pretty much. She's got it covered.
Now, but you're talking about the practicality. I'm not quite sure how practical it is, which is what you brought up. And RIA, do you remember RIA, that company, RIA? They're still around. They actually do sort of visualization type of software, and they changed from organizing photos to...
this is where they recognize faces?
Yeah.
That one?
Yeah. So they switched their model
to
because they switched their model to finding products on the web for you. So if you're looking for a particular type of bag, and you could find different
the Holy
bags.
Grail, right?
Yeah. So anyway, I guess what I'm saying is that finding a model or finding an application for this is probably going to be the challenge for them, which is what you said. Okay, let's talk about liquid scenarios, because that's time for Liquid Scenarios Minute. This is the
liquidity scenarios?
Liquidity scenarios. The time we look at valuations and exit strategies, and most importantly, when founders do or don't make money. We see Occipital as a hybrid between Flickr's emphasis on social photo sharing and Nevin Vision's deep world-class technical capabilities. In some ways, that also makes it analogous to RIA. Imaging technologies have generated lots of acquisitions, but have also required a great deal of capital, relied heavily on patents, and required lots of time, with many ventures taking 2 tries before finding an exit. One notable exception to this pattern is Flickr. Its primary funding was in the form of a government loan. RIA raised cash comparable to Nevin Vision, the most technology-centric company in this space, but managed to get a product to market a lot sooner. We built the Occipital model based on the trend of more ready-to-use technology, reducing the time between prototype and active users. Assuming Occipital raises a series of $2.5 million with a pre-money valuation of around $5 million, and then is able to sell for $30 million 2 years later, founders would walk away with $12.5 million. Techstars could see a 65x return on their sponsorship, and even the Series A investors would realize a 4.5x return. That's the Liquid Scenarios Minute. Okay, comments?
I would say those are great, as always. Great scenario to think about, the upside, and everybody smokes big fat cigars at the end of it. But the trick here is there's a lot of companies that, yes, several exits, but a lot of inputs into the process. A lot of companies that haven't had exits, generally in the photo space, generally in the sharing space. It's not a space currently that's short on competition, and short on other people are trying to figure out how to solve it. So
solve what?
Solve, whatever it may be. Solve any kind of new application.
Yeah.
So I think it's an interesting utility.
Yeah.
Where does it fit, and is it a feature, or is it a whole business?
What do you think about that exit scenario?
Well, the exit scenario for this is, I think, a Shutterfly, a Flickr, a something picks it up because it adds to the amount of pictures that are uploaded and printed to an existing service. I can't see it where it's standing alone.
No.
And
it'll be picked up quickly enough if it has good technology.
Well, it's not if it has good technology, it's if people really use it. I mean, there's like several leaps of faith that people care and do it, and the results are good. Besides that, there's no problem here. So I don't think it's a standalone company. It's an existing feature. But liquidity scenarios are easy, right? All you need to do is crank up Excel. That's not the hard part. The hard part is doing it.
Yeah.
All right, let's switch to Zamanta. Here's a company from Slovenia and London. This is, I call it a content recommendation engine. They basically aggregate a new aggregator of content. That's pretty cool.
I like that already.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Andraš from Zamanta, an exotic Slovenian company doing great things for bloggers. We created your own personal blogging assistant. So, when you are still writing your text, Zamanta goes to work and fetches you great images, great related articles from the blogosphere and from big media, suggest links maybe to Wikipedia, to Amazon or anywhere else that you should put in so your content is explained more throughoutly, and suggest text. So it just works, and it's kind of a bit like magic.
You gotta love the energy and the confidence in this guy. So I think it's a really great pitch.
No, he clearly loves his product. Again, what's interesting is another variant of how do we kind of automatically mash things together on the internet. So on one hand, we had Pure Photo. This guy's basically saying, when you're entering stuff into a blog or creating content, we can now sort of make recommendations on what it should link to or hyperlink to your friends automatically and basically accelerate the sort of webification of content, which is cool.
Well, it makes it, from a publisher standpoint, and basically that's what they're addressing content creators, this is a really great way to produce content. And you're no longer a print journalist when you're online. You're a producer of content. You bring together related articles, related images, and you make it a production. And so this is a nice tool for bloggers.
I don't know, you guys are laughing so hard I could barely hear his head. So what exactly does it do again?
They basically make recommendations on linking stuff. So it's basically when you have your like if you're saying, well, I'm going to link to a Ferrari, it'll actually give you the hyperlink to a Ferrari or a Ferrari picture or a Ferrari vendor, or it'll recommend a link that you can make that turn something into a hyperlink.
And will it link in the sense that, first thing I'll do is try Wikipedia, then I'll try Answers.com?
Well, see, that's the trick. That's a great question.
Well, it has a number of sources. Yeah. So it does have, I think, Wikimedia and Flickr and some just a number of sources where you can get images, where you can get video, and you could bring in different pieces of content to make your blog post richer.
However,
but they do it so right now the way you would do it is, okay, I'm looking for an image, you go to Google Images or you go to wherever you go to get an image. And
just go to Wikipedia or Answers.com.
Or you go to Wikipedia, right? But this makes it a lot easier, right?
But there's a bigger trick. I mean, yes, that's what I do. I go to Wikipedia, Answers.com. Right. The trick here is these guys are actually there's a selection issue, there's sort of a moral hazard, because they're selecting things to recommend to you for which you and they are going to get paid if someone clicks on it. So there's an advertising and a CPC relationship that happens here. So that changes also the nature of the editorial process, because now they're recommending things that you stick in there which aren't necessarily the best reference, but
they're getting paid.
Because someone's getting paid. So I think it's not simply just how do we make the best editorial content, it's how do we also get paid.
That's not, I think the biggest challenge for them is really if they are, right now they can help tiny bloggers, people who want to, one-man shows, 5-person outfits that want to create really compelling, rich content. But if you want to get Sure, and it might help you. I mean, we have it in our newsroom. Our newsroom is all about making our content look richer. The challenge for them is going into a big publisher where they don't want to direct their audience to other people's content. I mean, if you go to a New York Times or a MarketWatch, they don't show, or the Wall Street Journal, they don't show you other people's content. It is top stories on the Wall Street Journal, most read, most emailed.
The scenario in which it would be used or may be used, whether you're big or small, whether you're Walt Mossberg or David Pogue or Guy Kawasaki, or and I'm saying I'm small, is right now. I did a blog post this morning about movies, right? So I went to Answers.com and I found Gone with the Wind's Answers.com link. If I knew that this existed and if I trusted it, I know that everybody in the world is using Answers.com and Wikipedia. I'd love to find something that's more interesting that would differentiate me. So I would take a first shot, and I would say, all right, so, give me your best shot, Samantha. Show me what you've got for Gone with the Wind. And theoretically, they would show Wikipedia, they'd show Answers.com, but they'd also show IMDb. And then they might show some other sites that have this really great review analysis of it that I would love. Right. And I would link to that instead of that. Right. So I could see where I would bookmark this and use it as an alternative search engine for sources when I blog.
Yeah. I agree with that, but I think that's a strategic decision they have to make towards creating a high-quality editorial product versus creating just a shill for CPC advertisers.
Well,
if they go the CPC advertiser route,
forget it.
Yeah, forget it. So I actually think that they go the CPC advertiser route is not a good route. I think creating a really cool recommendation engine for bloggers, people who write online, is a great idea, but they should focus on the quality of the editorial, not the
theoretically, theoretically, there's 100 million bloggers, right, who might use this. I doubt that that's a real number. The CPC means absolutely nothing to me because Yeah. What am I going to make? A nickel
Yeah.
based on this? What do I care?
They can do affiliate. I mean, people make money on the affiliate marketing
It's
side.
too complex. I mean,
They can just why don't they just make a good product and charge $2 for it a month. I mean, something like
yeah,
that.
I pay for it. I don't care.
I think I would go the great product and charge for it route in this case versus the, massive hockey stick CPC thing that never happens.
Great. That's great advice for them. I'm sure maybe they haven't thought about whether they should make this a subscription model. I think it's actually, I probably would try to pay for it too, or use it, test it out.
I would try it twice.
Premium
Try it
model. Premium model. Okay, well, it's time for that liquid scenarios minute. The time we're going to look at valuations and exit scenarios. To find an analog of a potential Zemanta exit, Liquid Scenarios modeled the first 7 blog-related companies on the top half of Fred Wilson's blog. This included the search tool on the blog Legit and companies listed in the first paragraph, which we pasted into Liquid Scenarios search to generate models for each of the 7 companies. Of the 7 companies, 3 received up to 3 rounds of financing, 2 had resulted in exits. Feedburner, which was acquired for $100 million, and Delicious, which is believed to have been bought for around $12.5 million. Based on these exits, it appeared that investors in these firms would accept a 3x to 5x return if it happened early enough in the life of the company. To realize a similar return multiple with Zemanta, the company would have to sell for $23 to $30 million. In that range, investors would receive $7 to $10 million in proceeds, and founders would walk away with up to $18 million. That's the Liquid Scenarios Minute. Okay. Comment.
So those were all the comps were very, very successful companies. So you had Twitter, you had a number of other guys on there that all
Twitter's
were
not successful yet.
Well, Twitter is at least the platform's well adopted.
It wasn't
So back to your
really-
first point about you got to have consumption. There's at least a lot of
It
consumption.
was Feedburner and Delicious.
And I think they had whatever 100 million pre-last round or something like that. But the reality is that there's a lot of very, very successful companies that proved a lot of adoption before they got either a substantial exit or a high valuation financing. So these guys have to get a lot of people using it. I also would say most of those companies are like Legit are make a lot more sense as sort of ad-based models. And I actually think they may even come back around and do subscription-based stuff because if they're going to do search inside of blogs, I think that may or may not be a great advertising spot.
Okay.
But I do think that they have an opportunity to go these guys, to maybe not go the big adoption route, but actually go the actual business route and create a cool product that gets subscribers and maybe not go for 100 million valuation, but maybe a nice exit for the founders at like 25.
Okay.
I don't think your comps make any sense. I mean, they're like completely different things. I mean,
Okay.
this is sort of an auxiliary add-on bloggers tool. I would throw out the CPC model. I think the fact that you might add a link because you might get paid corrupts the whole process. I'm looking for the best link, not the best link I can get paid
sure
for.
that is their model, so
But,
let's just
okay.
be clear
Okay.
that we're
Okay.
not, they've never stated that that's their model, so
All right.
maybe that's
All right,
not
but
it.
My
we're
understanding was it was.
We're VCs, and we're making our rash judgments just like every other VC
Yeah.
does. No, we don't have to know anything to say, right?
Okay.
So the thing for me is, I could see this as part of, if it were built into Typepad, or if it were built into Blogger or Posterous
WordPress.
or Tumblr, okay. Now you can make your stuff arguably better because you have better links. I can understand that. It speaks to the subscription model. And then it might get acquired as another add-on. If Typepad owned this and Blogger didn't, then the Typepad pitch should be, well, when you create a blog with Typepad or 6 apart, we would help you make better blogs than Blogger.
Sure.
I can understand that pitch. That's worth a few million.
Maybe WordPressify it.
But the problem is, WordPress just bought whatchamacallit.
Intense
debate. And I think that the trick becomes, I don't know the value of those exits. They already got $2.5 million in.
Yeah.
Now they got to get.
Well, $2.5 million in is a boatload of money for this.
Yeah.
I mean, that is.
That's a lot.
I'd like to get $2.5 million out.
Yeah.
much less
So the trick
in.
is going to be that. I mean, the trick for the founders is going to be this point. They've already got a pretty high hurdle. It's trying to raise more.
Yeah, that's going to be tough.
Getting a $30 million exit on this
can't
kind
be
of
right.
thing
I
will be
know.
tough.
This should
I
be
know.
3 people in a garage in Slovenia? Where they are? Yeah.
Slovenia.
This should be a
Okay.
10, 15,000, 25,000 a month kind of company right now. It shouldn't.
Okay.
I don't know what you would do with $2.5 million for this.
You get the cool shirt. You go to the conference.
You get to go to conferences
Go to Las
and pay
Vegas.
$10,000 to
You
go
go
to
to that,
Blog
and you
World.
get- yeah.
So, okay, so we do this. We're ending it now with which company would you bet on? Now, I
I-
know they're
I
two
have to
different
pick
ones,
one?
but you have to pick one.
I can't
Is it
pick none?
acceptable? You can pick none. You could say, like, you know, I don't. Yeah, you
Is
got
it
to
for
put
my
some
fund
money
or
in.
my money or what? My what?
It's for your fund.
My living
yeah.
trust?
Yes. It's for all of the above. You just got to bet on one. If you had to put $50,000 on one company,
I put it on Zomato
okay, why?
because
More commercial use or an
yeah, I can.
obvious?
This use
Yeah.
is more likely for me as a blogger
Mhm.
and a photographer
Mhm.
than Occipital.
Mhm.
Occipital is like, I took the picture, man. I know exactly what I want to say. I don't need
Yeah.
any more pictures. My picture's better than their other pictures.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
I'm gonna go counter. Both of these are tricky ones, and they're not. Neither one's a total grand slammer. But I think Occipital's doing some crazy next level stuff that like could come around, and it may be totally awesome, and they may figure out a way to make sort of mashups of images really work and give people a new kind of application for a lot of content that's sort of sitting out there dead. So maybe they can do something clever, but they got to find an application of it. And I think the other guys got to be careful how they apply what they have to make sure they got a quality
It's
product.
just different kinds of risks. These two
Different
companies
kinds
are
of
very
risks.
different kind of risks.
This
Yeah.
company only raised $10,000, so
Yeah.
I
I love
think
that
they
too.
could
Yeah, well,
probably
that's better.
sell for a
Yeah.
million. So if they wanted another
Yeah.
50,000,
Maybe I'll change my
I
vote.
think I'm going to say that. But you can't do that. Okay, but you'll have another try
Yeah.
because we're going to have you back, Guy,
You
for
are?
another Vader
Yeah.
box. That time we're going to be looking at Travelfly and Urban Planet Mobile. So that's it for this week's Vader Box. Guy Kawasaki, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for your insight. Ezra Royson, as always, thank you. You've been watching Vader Box. I'm Bambi Francisco. We'll see you next time on Vader TV.